I realized recently that I've never been in a fight before. Not once in my entire life. Not as a kid, not as an adult. But it does kind of surprise me because my mouth has only gotten worse with age. And I've said a lot of things that definitely should have earned me a fist or two by now, but no fights, never. And just so we're clear, this is not an open invitation to punch me in the face if you run into me somewhere. This is a win streak I'd like to maintain as long as possible. I have come close though, and I think the closest that I ever really came was in the 8th grade. There was a girl that I liked in my history class, Tanya, and we were in the talking phase of our relationship, which was basically the pre-dating phase of dating where you pass cute little notes to each other. Think of it like when you match with someone on a dating app and you only chat with them inside the app for a few weeks because you aren't quite sure yet that they won't try to make a bodysuit out of your skin. So things seemed to be going well with her, and then one day I was having lunch with my friends, and my buddy Glenn comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, just so you know, Josh is looking for you. Something about some notes you were passing to his girlfriend." I said, Josh? Josh who? "Josh is in Tanya's boyfriend, Josh," Glenn tells me. Ruh-roh. Did not know that Tanya had a boyfriend, and I only knew the one Tanya, so I assumed we were talking about the same one that failed to mention that she had a boyfriend. I figured the best thing to do was to just get ahead of it, right? I'll go find Josh, I'll tell him that I didn't know they were dating, and then reassure him I'll leave her alone, no problem. I looked at Glenn and I said, "Okay, what does Josh look like? I've never seen him before. I want to go talk to him." He said, "Oh, he looks like that." And he says this as he's pointing to a menacing, shadowy figure across the courtyard that is staring right at us. I said, "Glenn, the guy we're pointing at right now and clearly talking about is the guy that's looking for me?" Yeah, that's the guy," he said. And at this point, Josh has already begun his approach towards us. Glenn says, "Listen, dude, I don't think you should fight this guy." I said, "I don't plan on fighting this guy, Glenn, so no problem there." I said, "Yeah, but he might want to fight you. You should probably know that he's a Golden Gloves boxer." I don't know what that means, Glenn." "It means that he's part of a local boxing club, and he fights a lot. He's also the regional champion in both his age and size groups," he delightfully added. "Awesome, thanks, Glenn." Devin, he won't stop when you're bleeding. He will only stop when you're dead. "Thank you, Glenn! Don't fight the 13-year-old boxing prodigy. I got it. Thank you." Just to paint the scenario a bit, I'm sitting on this bench with 4 of my friends around, and Josh the murder machine is approaching us, and he's alone, which signaled to me that he had a level of confidence behind those fists so profound that the prospect of having to possibly fight 5 guys at the same time was of no concern to him. So upon Josh's arrival, he kindly, yet firmly, invited me to stand up. I didn't feel like standing up would have been in my best interest at the time, so I instead tried to open up the dialogue a little bit. I said, "Hey, you must be Josh. I think there might be a misunderstanding, and if we could just, talk about it." "Maybe you didn't hear me the first time," he said. "Stand up." One of my friends was standing just behind Josh, and I looked over at him, and he was shaking his head at me, silently trying to tell me that standing up is a really bad idea, like I didn't already know this. I looked back at Josh and I said, "Listen, dude, I would hate to ruin your shirt with my blood, so maybe we can just talk this out." And it was right around that time that I saw Josh's right arm rear back to deliver what would have likely been a near fatal blow to my very punchable face. But somehow I felt that the punch was coming, and I leaned forward towards him, and I threw my left arm up in hopes of preventing a large hospital bill for my mother. And as his fist came screaming towards my face, I leaned in and he overshot his target and stumbled forward on top of me. Somehow I managed to shove him off, which gave me just enough time to push myself up off the bench and send my right fist towards the sky. And suddenly I felt my knuckles make contact with his jaw as I landed this epic anime-style uppercut on this dude that he was not expecting. And he stumbled backwards, and as he started to fall towards the concrete, I just snapped. Yeah, I snapped right out of that daydream because that is not at all what happened. I told you I'd never been in a fight, but that sounded awesome for a minute though, didn't it? Yeah, so what actually happened was him losing his patience with me around the time I made the bloody shirt comment, and instead he just leaned in and started screaming at me, saying that he's gonna destroy me for trying to move in on his girl. You know, because 8th grade relationships are forever and totally justify murder. And he just kept encouraging me to stand up, but he wasn't really making it feel like a safe space, you know, so I continued to stay seated. The problem was that as he screamed, he got closer and closer, which resulted in me leaning further and further away from him, to the point where I was just about in Glenn's lap, who was sitting right next to me. I'll just say that I was close enough to Glenn that if he wanted to, he could have kissed me on the forehead with minimal effort. This goes on for some time, and I guess Josh eventually got bored when he realized that he wasn't going to be anointing his fists with virgin blood that day. So he eventually wandered off. Once I was sure the coast was clear, I laughed the awkwardness off and said to my friends, "Hey, better to be a coward than to be dead, right, boys?" That was all I had, and lunch returned to normal, I guess. And guess what class I had right after lunch? History class! I saw Tanya, and I immediately went up to her, and I said, "Why didn't you tell me you had a boyfriend?" She said, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you knew." I said, I know now, because he came looking for my blood during lunch. So now I'm sad about Tanya, and I'm concerned, because what happens if I run into Josh in the halls, and I just happen to be standing, which is very likely? Am I supposed to carry a chair with me everywhere I go for the rest of my life and quickly sit down in case Josh shows up and hope that he respects the previously established code of no bloodshed for those who are seated? I got home from school that day and I realized that Josh was probably going to tell people about our encounter and that I would likely lose some very valuable 8th grade street cred when people found out about this. So the next day at school, I decided I was going to man up and confront Josh. All the students hung out in the cafeteria in the mornings before the first bell rang, so I went there and I found him sitting at a table with his friends. I took a deep breath and I said to myself, "You're either a man today or you are a coward forever." And I walked straight on over. Straight on over to the principal, who was also in the cafeteria that morning. And I told him everything. I told him that Josh was mean to me the day before, that he tried to start a fight with me, that he had me confused about sitting etiquette. I might have even cried a little bit. And luckily, the principal took my complaint very seriously, and as it turned out, Josh was already on thin ice for similar mishaps, and he was actually on a final warning with the school. Imagine that. He was removed from school by the end of the week and sent to an alternative school very far away. And I never saw Josh again. The weird thing was that Tanya also mysteriously disappeared at the end of the school year, so I can only assume that she's sharing a deep vertical hole with a dog somewhere. So to all of you who have ever been told to fight your own battles, I say screw that. Let someone else fight your battles for you, as often as you can. Better to be a coward and see another day than to be dead at the fists of a deranged 13-year-old boxing champion.